So give me a pause there. Good evening. It is 5:30, so we're going to call the regular meeting of the Ottumwa City Council to order. I'd encourage you to turn your cell phones to silent or vibrate, and then let's stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chris, would you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Strebe?
Victor Schieber is not here tonight. He's participating in the Indian Hills graduation, and it's quite an honor to be a part of that. And he wanted me to make sure that the public understood that was a conflict he couldn't get out of.
Councilmember Berg?
Here.
Councilmember Dalby?
Here.
Councilmember Rowe?
Here.
Councilmember Stevens?
Here.
Mayor Lazio?
Here.
Items on the consent agenda. Minutes from regular meeting number 5 on February 5th, 2019, and special meeting number 6 on February 12th, 2019 as presented. Acknowledgement of January financial report and payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. Appointment of Mary Stewart to the Historic Preservation Board, term to expire 1/1/2022. Resolution number 29, 2019, authorizing a tuition scholarship application submission before the deadline of April 1st, 2019 for city support of expenses for the city clerk to attend the Iowa Municipal Professionals Institute in July 2019. Beer and/or liquor applications for Casey's General Store, number 1886 at 504 West Mary Street. Hy-Vee Drug Store at 1140 North Jefferson Street. All applications pending final inspections.
Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you. Item C, we need a motion for tonight's agenda.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda with the exception of item H6. Have that pulled off.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Before we get into reports tonight, I just would like to make a general announcement that due to technical difficulties, we were unable to broadcast the special meeting held on the 12th. We are going to add some of those items back on tonight's agenda because information is very valuable and helpful, and I want to be sure the public is made aware of the things that we talked about last week. So nobody's fault, just happened, and we're sorry it was not able to be broadcast. So at this point, I'd turn the meeting over to City Administrator Andy Morris. And Andy, tell us about the things you have going on.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. The only item you see listed, and I haven't added anything else, but the item you see listed is a Bridgeview Hotel project update. That is an item that the city staff has been working on for the last couple of months. And Mayor, if it pleases you and the council, I'd ask Kevin Flanagan to step forward at this time and provide an update to the council.
Good evening, Kevin. Kevin Flanagan's our city planner. You have the floor, Kevin.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a project we've all been waiting for, of course, and it's been moving along quite well so far. We have chosen a developer, of course. Chris Bro Hospitality will be our developer. And as far as the project goes, at current time, it's 96 rooms. It includes a small pool and hot tub, as you would normally see in a business fair. It also includes items such as a bistro and small bar area. It will be on the site of the current parking lot at Bridgeview Center. There will be connectivity to Bridgeview Center proper via vestibule, which is out of the weather. It'll be sealed and connected to that. There'll be some work that takes place resulting from that inside of Bridgeview Center to make that transition kind of work. And of course, there's parking concerns as well. There's approximately 232 parking areas around the parking lot proper as it exists after construction. That will be the case, estimated from the developer. We feel like that may be a little bit on the high side. Of course, it's hard to say right now. Of course, some of the items that we're looking at as part of the project, overall cost right now is estimated, hard and soft cost included, to be around $14 million. There is, of course, as in all cases when we do projects like this, a bit of a funding gap. And of course, that's where the city comes in this essentially public-private partnership in which we're looking at a funding gap right now approximated to $4 million. So it is in our TIF district. So as in the other cases of the project that we've done in the past, including the apartment complex, the Washington apartment complex, most recently the hospital effort that we've undertaken, we've done rebatements in those cases. In this case, quite a similar kind of mechanism that we'll be looking at using to fulfill our portion of the public-private partnership. I will entertain any questions that members have. I do want to point out, though, that on the agenda tonight, we did have a resolution of intent to enter into a development agreement with developer. Now, that agreement had went to our developer. They're still reviewing that, so there's still some language work that they're doing on their end. So there may be some modification of that resolution. That's why we removed it from the agenda tonight, essentially tabling it as a function, and we'll be bringing that back hopefully at our next meeting, or as soon as possible, certainly as soon as the developer has gotten with us on the language they'd like to see. If it is to be any different, we're not sure that it is yet, but at that time, we'll be bringing it back to you for consideration. There are some items involved in this project that are going to be outside of what we'd call the bundle of deliverables from our developer. We're still working on those items, so they're not really quite ready for public consumption yet either. We'll be discussing those, though, as soon as we can, certainly at upcoming meetings. But I'll take any questions any members have about the project.
Are there any questions for Kevin? And Kevin, before you take any questions, I want to be clear that we did talk with our bonding attorneys in Des Moines, and you've had conversation with them, so they're fully on board with what we're doing.
Indeed, they are. We've had a lot of conversations over the phone, some emailing going on, giving them basic information about who our developer is and how we're going to do our incentives package. One thing that is also compelling the resolution in a way, essentially the compelling element of the resolution, is that we want our developer to be freed up to do engineering work. And we need some of that engineering work that I would call essential yesterday, basically, because when Bridgeview Center was first constructed, it was constructed on that site as it is, without vacation of existing streets that might have existed at the time, or alleyways and lots as they were, because of course it's all city property, and the Bridgeview will be there in perpetuity. Not important at the time, but it becomes important now, because in our agreements with the developer, part of our development agreement, what we're going to be leasing to the developer on a 99-year long-term lease will only be the property that you could say would be the footprint of the building, and also to curb of parking lot, right? We're not going to be leasing any of the parking to them or any portions of the Bridgeview Center itself. And so it was very difficult to come up with a description for the piece of property that will be leased, which will have to be in our lease contract. So we're going to basically execute a plat of survey on that lot. So I need developer to perform some engineering to what is that footprint, so we can inform our surveyor when he comes to the site to be able to pull that piece of property out of what is a collection of lots. So a little bit of a challenge there, and that's one reason that we were compelled early in the process, as we are, to start working on this resolution, so he can feel comfortable, they can feel comfortable, the developer, to release their engineers for work that of course they'll be paying for. So.
Okay. Yep.
Kevin, in the weekly report that I seen just a while ago, it talked about using the tennis courts, horseshoe courts across the street for extra parking. Has that been researched? Is that okay or was that part of Central Edition, or how did that pan out?
We are looking at that as an option right now, and that's kind of included in a bundle of the other things that we're looking at as far as how we're going to proceed with not just operational aspects of Bridgeview while construction is going on, but after the fact, what's going to be the permanent parking situation. So we're still considering that as one of our options. But right now we're working on so much of that, and it's a little bit immature right now to make a statement on how we're going to proceed on that.
But have you researched, are you familiar with the fact that if you use any of that Greater Ottumwa Park, so to speak, Central Edition, that it has to be replaced with other parkland?
Traeger Park, I think, is the name of that actual area right there where the tennis courts are, and not a part of the attendance of the federal issues you're talking about on the Greater Park, Sycamore Park area. But you are right about Sycamore Park. Some form, if you were to use it for some other purpose than its designated purpose, some element of mitigation might be necessary to do that. We are aware of that, but this project won't really touch on Sycamore Park. We don't believe at all.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I guess I would just comment, and really this is probably the most simplistic of the issues that I would want to address before throwing a whole lot of support behind this. And that is exactly what Councilperson Stevens had brought up as moving the parking lot across the street. To me, that seems like a safety issue, quite honestly, to have people coming out of one of the busier streets in Ottumwa to cross the road when we actually have a parking area that's not crossing a public street down below with the National League field. So I would personally like to see some studies done in that area as well as Sycamore Park, because we do have one of the only good tennis courts that we have in town right now that we'd potentially be ripping up for a parking lot that fees, at least in my mind, we would still be at a net loss for parking spots for the size of that area versus what we'd be giving up for hotel space. It doesn't seem like a wise financial move for us to build a parking lot that doesn't even give us the same yield as what we had lost. So just a general comment on that. I would really like to see some research on the lower level parking lot as well.
Yeah, whatever, the good points all there, and whatever parking schemata that we end up recommending to council, we will have fully vetted it as far as for cost and operational aspects, which is an important matter of it, because of course our front facade's going to be coming out that way. But if that spot at Traeger were to be used for parking, certainly traffic controls, major crossing would be the case. In order to make it as safe as possible. But we will be discussing all those items, I think, in upcoming meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Holly?
I guess kind of echoing what Councilmember Rowe said, I think, when I saw that the agreement was on the agenda tonight, I was a little concerned, because I think that we need to have more facts and figures to council, to know if we're on board with the project as it is right now, not just with the parking and the layout, but when there's been discussion of incentives and there's been discussion of the contract, but we haven't seen any of that. So I'd really like to get more of that information, to be comfortable with how we're proceeding.
No, totally understandable. And we are pretty early in the process, and we are still putting together that development agreement. And so there's a lot of inclusions that are going to be a part of that. And I want to reiterate, just so everybody really gets that point, the real focus and function of tonight's resolution was indeed to indicate a comfort level and a knowledge with our developer that, yes, we are entering at some point into a development agreement, but essentially to release, to establish the comfort level with them so that they would spend money, be able to spend money confidently, doing the engineering that would inform us as to the lot. Configuration that will be needing a description for meets and bounds to put in our contract. That was really the compelling reason for this early coming forward with that resolution for intent. Although, of course, a resolution of intent to enter a development agreement will always be the case with these projects. As you recall, we did so with our other projects as well when we were going to be involved in public-private relationships. But that was the overall compelling reason.
I think for just general information for the public too, we did have a very good staff meeting, Public Works, City Attorney, Andy was there, obviously, you, Scott Hallgren from Bridgeview, Andy Wartenberg from the CVB, and others. So I think it was, just for council comfort, a lot of good discussion, and most of the items that have been brought up tonight were at least looked at. We have not made any decisions at this point. I think your point, it's well taken, is too early, but we need to kind of keep moving on this. So we'll be anxious to see that agreement and the resolution.
Thank you.
Okay. Andy, is there anything else you want to comment on?
I don't have anything else, Mayor. Thank you.
Just for public information, again, since our meeting last time was not broadcast, and I see Fred Zessinger sitting in the audience. Last week, we did present Fred with a certificate of appreciation. He has been on the Historic Preservation Committee for 18 years and has given invaluable time and service to this community. And so I want to recognize him for that. And sorry that we don't have the certificate tonight. We already gave it to you. And then thirdly, I was in Des Moines today, and I want to compliment Councilperson Holly Berg. We had a statewide meeting auditorium at the State Historical Building, and the Ottumwa film Patchwork was shown to the entire audience, and it gives a very good portrayal of some of the things that are happening here in our community. And over the lunch hour, I heard a lot of compliments from the people who were in attendance about Holly's work with the Iowa Arts Council. So thank you, Holly, for that. Okay, is there anyone in the audience that wants to address an item on the agenda? And if you have, would you fill it out and fill out a slip and give it to us? I haven't seen any come up, but okay. Let's go to item F then.
Consideration of a state and community highway safety grant application to the Governor's Traffic Safety Bureau. Recommendation: approve the grant submission and authorize the mayor and chief of police to sign the application and contract upon receipt.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Give that to Matt. Good evening, Chief McAndrew. You have the floor.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. The Police Department has partnered with the Governor's Traffic Safety Bureau since 1988 to enhance our traffic safety efforts. Previous grants have been used to purchase traffic safety-related equipment and to pay overtime wages for special traffic enforcement activities. This partnership has helped us to combat both personal injury and alcohol-related crashes. We have been invited to submit an application for a one-year grant. This proposal requests $12,000 in grant funding to be used for overtime wages and an additional $13,500 for equipment, which would be 3 in-car video cameras. This grant pays 100% of the overtime wages and 100% of the equipment.
Are there any questions for the chief? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Review and accept the certified local government annual report for 2018 as submitted by the Ottumwa Historic Preservation Commission. Recommendation: authorize the mayor to sign the annual report.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Thank you, Holly. Good evening, Kevin. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Ottumwa Historic Preservation Commission has completed the certified local government annual report for 2018. As submitted, the report to City Council will be reviewed and accepted. The CLG annual report is required to be completed and submitted to Paula Moore with the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs. At the January 23rd, 2019 Historic Preservation Committee meeting, the Historic Preservation Commission reviewed and accepted the annual report. Commission members requesting the annual report be submitted to the City Council for review before being taken, signed, and submitted to Paula Moore. Requirements in this annual report would include meeting at least 3 times a year and attending at least one state-sponsored or state-approved training session. So I trust that members have been able to review that report, and that the mayor will be able to sign that directly, and we'll be getting that off to our state sponsor.
Any questions for Kevin? Seeing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Work session update for CSO Phase 8, Division 1 on routing and opinion of cost for the sewer separation project. Recommendation, receive presentation.
At this point, we're going to invite Larry Seals, Director of Public Works, to go over the Blake's Branch sewer separation. That was part of the presentation last week that could not be broadcast. So Larry, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. City staff had been working with our consulting engineer to review and evaluate possible routing options and associated costs for the Phase 8 Division 1 sewer separation project. After reviewing about 6 possible sewer main alignments, we've determined the best route would be from Elm Street Pump Station northerly along Elm Street up to Main, follow Main to Birch, and that'll be the first phase or division of Phase 8. We're currently reviewing additional storm lines along Main Street to separate and pick up existing past separated projects and direct the flow to Blake's Branch box sewer, which will become a storm line when this project is completed. And remember, we've got this tentatively divided into at least 3 projects just from the size and scale, because it basically starts at the Elm Street pump station and runs all the way up behind the Vine or close to the intersection of Jefferson and Pennsylvania. We'll also be evaluating the merits of adding a parallel storm on Orchard to the Iowa Avenue area. That'll be based on our total flow once separation is done. And with this selected routing, one of the things that we're looking at on South Elm, we'll be able to pick up the flow from both Haynes and Orchard, and that's the sanitary flow. And we'll be looking at what do we do in that area as far as street reconstruction and how much sanitary separation. We originally hadn't included that with the initial routing, but it probably makes sense. That's one of the CSOs that we do have to address, and we'll weigh that as design progresses. We'll just go into the PowerPoint that we had prepared for the last presentation. This is just a general map. It's probably a little small for you to see, but the yellow line represents well, sometimes it shows up, but it won't show up on that bright screen. Well, kind of. That yellow line is the Blake's Branch box. That box is about a 10 by 10. You can actually enter that and drive all the way to the river. Let's go to the next slide. One of the things that we've done, we did apply for a IDNR SRF planning loan that we can roll in our design. That'll be a no interest loan until the end of construction. I don't think we have to pay it back for what, 3 years after construction? 2 years? 3. What we've done and what we're working on under the concept, we have to develop by code, we have to do an engineering study that has to be presented to the DNR to make sure it's feasible, meets all the design standards. We're going to do that for all divisions 1, 2, and 3, to where we don't have to repeat that work. And then we'll be into the design stage from that point on. Just permitting will take place as the phased construction takes place. What it looks like we're going to do right now is install a 36-inch sanitary pipe. It's going to be in the right-of-way as much as practical. As first division, I believe we'll have a few places we have to cross private property, pick up easements and the like, but that's not uncommon. We're going to parallel an existing cross country on a couple of the lots. Again, basically the Phase 8 Division 1 will utilize the existing 10-foot box as a storm system, and we'll pull all the sanitary. And the reason you do that is just cost. A 10-inch or a 10-foot box is expensive to build, construct, compared to a 36-inch sewer line. This one, again, if you have that in your handout, you can see we've done a couple of areas. The box out, unfortunately, it's not going to show very well for the viewing public. You can see where we actually turn, come down, and then head straight down Elm. We did prepare a drone flight that'll kind of give you a better bird's eye view of that. Go ahead and fire up the drone. Basically, you're looking at the grit chamber in the Elm Street pump station, and this is the existing levee. Here's Pools Trucking. This will start looking up what is Elm Street. You can see where that line is the indicator of where the initial routing will take place. We've got a few landowners to work with here. And again, as we come across here, here's where we're looking at these side sanitaries to pick up. We are going to pick up the flow, but we're not sure the condition. Do they need replaced at this time, or do we make that a separate project? But we can pick them up. That's how the design is. It's deep enough to pick up all these sanitary lateral lines. This is one of the main things that we want to look at from a street project. This is something that we're looking at. We know we have sanitary sewer that's got a lot of open joints. We have a lot of maintenance problem, a lot of sand coming in. And again, that line will just continue straight across through here. We've got an existing line. It's closer to over here. But anyway, this is always fun, trying to cross the railroad or boring underneath. This project will also include full width, full depth of Main Street. That pavement, we're going to start where we stopped on Vine and Main, and we will take it all the way to Van Buren. That'll allow us to put in storm on one side, sanitary on the other, and then Ottumwa Water Works is going to participate and also install a water main at the same time. So once we're through this corridor, we'll have a good solid main entrance and Main Street. So this is where we basically turn. Also, this is where the main box runs underneath some of these buildings. So we'll actually parallel here. The storm line will cross and come into the box to do the separation of this entire hillside that had previously been separated and recombined over the years. That's what we've done in different areas. We'll pick off with a street job. We'll do separation, but until the backbone is in, then you recombine it and pick it up in a later design. And this was just try to indicate, you know, as we pick up storm, and we haven't determined yet how far do we have to go back in the streets to pick up the sanitary and bring it into the new sanitary line. It'll be higher than the existing box, and we'll have some challenges getting over the existing 10 by 10 box. And again, the plan under the Division 1 will be to stop at Plum Street. And back to the PowerPoint. Let's go to the next slide. That's probably too small. Generally, what we've done from this point is just give you estimates of the size of pipe, the linear footage, and that's where we come up with our budget. We're currently sitting at around $6 million, just slightly under, and that's what we had originally anticipated. And we were going to fund with TIF in the area that's eligible for TIP funding. And then we've got a small area that's outside on Birch that we're looking at either road use or a combination. And this just lays out some of the processes that we have to do, a lot of the permitting that we have to do. We've already done some of the wetland delineation. We've completed that through an outside firm. Same way with some of these, when we figure out where we need to pull a few samples. So one thing is we want to try to avoid, especially when we start getting into Birch, will be rock layers. We need to be able to determine if we have any issues with that. And the reason for that is design it into our project with bid items and allow the contractor to be able to bid those type of work items. So, and this is the process. Is there any questions? I mean, this is a fairly large project. It's standard. It just, the scale is large.
Larry, I think at the last meeting, there were a couple of questions by council, and I just want to reiterate that we're not doing this because we would like to do it. We're mandated by the court to do this project as part of our 25-year consent decree.
Correct.
And then secondly, you and V&K, the engineering firm, will look at all funding sources to work with Bob on getting as much maximized funding and leverage of funds that we can do.
Correct. And that's something we've always done. We'll look at what is available. Are the grants available at the time that fit this scope of work? I mean, we still have a deadline to get this phase done by December 31st of 2025. But if we can get a grant along the way that will fit the parameters of what we're doing, we keep our eyes open at all times.
Are there any questions for Larry or any comments? Yeah, some of you, this is second or third time around, but we want to be sure that the public is aware that this is a major project and will be disruptive at the time. Once it gets started, we'll do our best to make them aware of where we're at and how we can move along with it.
Well, it'll be a multi-stage project, but just because of the access points of some of the businesses along Main Street, some of the crucial points for access will be developed as we go. And like with a lot of our projects, we'll be meeting with a lot of owners.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, I just had one. I know this is the topic of conversation Larry discussed at the last meeting. It's not really fair to talk about construction seasons necessarily because this is going to span the seasons. Plus or minus, you recall, Larry, offhand, what time frame we're looking at?
We're wanting to let in December or January of 19 into 20. We want to start construction early 20. We know it'll be probably a 2-year project just because of the size of the Main Street project.
So all items being equal into 2022?
Well, I would think by the end of 21.
Okay.
For this phase. But one of the things that we'll be doing probably June, July of this year, once we get this design well on the way, they basically finished the survey for Division 1. We'll be looking at starting the design on Division 2. And again, overall, and I say 2 years, I'm saying Division 1. Through Division 1, 2, and 3, you're probably looking at completing construction in year 2025.
All right. All right. That's all I had. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, keep us posted and we'll update the public on this as we get into it. So thank you, Larry. I'm glad we were able to show that tonight. Item G.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing for instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed 1.4 million general obligation bonds.
Good evening, Bob.
Good evening, Your Honor. What we have here is after we did our original CIP request, we discovered that the landfill was going to be wanting to issue some bonds this summer for landfill development, for cell development out there. So I went ahead and called the attorneys, got them on board with this, and what it'll do is it'll save us about $10,000 in issuance costs and save the landfill about $20,000 to $30,000 in issuance costs, excuse me. And so we've went ahead and incorporated that into the bond offering we're going to sell next March 5th, this March 5th. And everybody's going to save some money on it. So, and so this is one of the procedures. We have to have a public hearing, and then the next, the resolution 31-209, 2019 will be to take additional action.
Okay. This is a public hearing, and so anyone in the audience that wants to comment on this? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Resolution number 31, 2019, instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed 1.4 million general obligation bonds. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 31, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Bob?
Let me add that these will be a 10-year bond, 2 years longer than the CIP issue, and they'll be paid entirely from the landfill fund. Let me know.
Good
Taxpayer
clarification.
dollars paid for that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the beach renovations Phase 4 installation of new wave generation equipment project 2019.
Good evening, Gene. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This project will involve providing the labor and equipment to completely remove and dispose of designated existing wave generation equipment and installation of new equipment provided by the City of Ottumwa. Bids will be received and opened by the City of Ottumwa on March 13th, 2019 at 2 p.m. The bid report and bid award recommendation will be presented at the City Council meeting on March 19th, 2019, or at a later date as determined by staff. Actual work on this project will begin on or about May 1st, 2019, with the installation complete by May 24th, 2019. The engineer's opinion of cost for this project is $30,000.
Okay. This is also a public hearing, so if there's anybody that wants to comment on this, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Holly.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Resolution number 37, 2019, approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the beach renovations Phase 4 installation of new wave generation equipment project 2019. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 37, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Gene? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the downtown streetscape project.
Good evening, Larry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This project consists of complete reconstruction of the 100, 200, and 300 blocks of Main Street. It will include full-width, full-depth PCC reconstruction. The project will include the replacement of the sanitary sewer lines, sewer laterals, and in addition, new water mains and service lines will be installed during the project. New ADA-compliant sidewalks will be installed along with the handicap drops. A Legacy Foundation, in conjunction with Main Street, has been coordinating with business owners, operators, and Genus Landscape Architects during the development of the proposed improvements, which include permeable pavers, biogardens, and decorative lighting. Ottumwa Waterworks has budgeted $511,000 for water main and service lines replacement. Bids will be received and opened by the City of Ottumwa on April 10th, 2019, and a bid report and bid award recommendation will be presented by the City Council at the City Council meeting on April 16th, 2019, or at a later date as determined by staff. I've got some of the funding broke out currently. Legacy is looking at and has funded up to $2,346,000 with the City of Ottumwa at $3,070,000. We were successful in getting a CDBG Community Facilities Grant in the amount of $800,000. I want to kind of take you through the original presentation or PowerPoint that was given to you by Genus. They planned on being here for part of this presentation, but with the weather coming in, they chose not to travel. One coming out of Kansas City and the other out of the Des Moines office. Again, just kind of an overview of what the street is going to look like. You can see there's a lot of green features added. The sidewalks will be, of course, improved. These areas along through the trees will be permeable pavers along with the street crossing. There's some parking areas in front by Legacy, and then the intersections like on Market will be permeable pavers. And again, this wasn't meant to be a detailed description other than just the general overview from the first presentation. You can see one of the things that'll be part of the bioswales and biogardens was the rain will be shed into these areas. They do have overflows that's designed ultimately if they're exceeded on capacity that go into the storm system. But the idea is to go vertical with your water for purifications and storm water quality benefits. This is the general schedule. Of course, today's the public hearing. We've got some notifications and bid advertisement. They'll be completed on the 27th. Contractor pre-bid meeting will be March 27th, and bids are due on April 10th. The bids will be presented on council on April 16th, and then we'll bring back the contractors and normal documents on the 30th. Commence work will, of course, have to be coordinated with the contractor and see what his schedule is. That's the way the documents are set up to start immediately. The intent is try to get about half of this area completed or constructed in this construction season. It's anticipated that they'll probably start in the Green Street area and head toward Jefferson just because you usually lay upstream for sanitary storm, that type of flow for you're not bypass pumping. There's an awful lot of features included in this. I think it's worth noting that the project The first public open house on this project was 5/28 of 15. And then there's been several different days set where we had multiple meetings, usually 3 different meetings on 6/12 of 18 for business owners. They had one in the morning, mid-morning, and afternoon. They also did that December 5th of this year, or last year actually. And they did the same thing, 3 separate business meetings with owners. So there's been a lot of input from the owners. We do have Brad Grief and Fred Zessinger here. They worked on this project quite a bit. If they have any additional comments. Would you like to add anything, guys?
Any questions for them? Skip, go ahead.
The whole intersection of Market and Main will be brick pavers, am I correct?
That's correct.
Is there another area?
I believe Green is the same way.
Okay. I guess I have some concerns. I'm for the project. Don't take this wrong. I'm for the project, but there's a lot of maintenance there. And with heavy traffic on brick pavers, it's already happened in the Canteen Alley. I think we're going to have some issues, but it's in the project. Can't be done any other way. Secondly, have you given any more consideration to angle parking as opposed to parallel parking in the 200 block?
That was discussed after the one meeting. I know there was 1 or 2 business owners that was concerned about the reduction in spots immediately in front of their business. I think the traffic study that was done, or the parking study, clearly indicated there's available space currently. I think they were at 37% on average of peak parking, on-street parking. We did look at that, but in order to do that, then you'd have to leave your sidewalks as narrow as they are, and you would cut out not only kind of the fill of the corridor, but you couldn't do it in the 200 block with that leaving angle parking. So it was decided by the design team that it should go ahead and be changed back to parallel.
What design team?
The city, Main Street, Legacy, all the groups that was involved
And there were business owners there too.
through this whole process.
Yeah.
I personally talked to every owner on the south side of Main Street in the 200 block. Every one of them wanted to leave it as angle parking. So I don't think whoever paid enough attention to our merchants.
I'll have Fred and Brad speak on this because I did not attend those meetings. There was a lot of public input meetings because of the number of them. I didn't attend all of them. I would attend one. And I know that some of them, the business owners attended more than.
I was at one meeting, yes,
Okay.
Correct.
You guys like to address that?
So we did have several public meetings, and especially with those in the 200 block. Actually had another set of meetings with property owners and that wanted to participate. But at the end of that second meeting, Genus had brought in drawings leaving the angled parking in place, and talked to them about the benefits of both the parallel and the angled parking. And at the end of that second meeting, it was a consensus that, the property owners that were there wanted to see the project move forward, and were in consent that the parallel they felt would benefit them as well. So they didn't want to speak against it at that point, and said they wanted to see the project move forward, and felt like the design team was not misleading them.
Was there people there from the south side of that block?
There were, yes, both, and it was just that block, just the 200 block business owners. And actually on the committee itself was a 200 block business manager owner.
Well, I'm still hearing from some of them, and they don't seem to be very happy with it. But like I say, I'm not opposed to the project. I want to see it happen, but I'm just concerned about those things.
Well, and I would say I was part of the team as a council representative, and Councilmember Dalby was there as well and worked through a lot of those processes. There's pros and cons to both sides. There were several business owners in the 200 block who wanted the widened sidewalks, the uniform look on both sides of the street, the safety when they are seeing people getting backed out and almost getting hit. across the street from them. Those were also concerns that were raised. Several of the things that we worked at to mitigate the issue with the angle parking was the signage that's going to be going in to really promote the angle parking on the back sides of those buildings. You know, we have ample parking in those parking lots. So we talked about doing things like the signage, the preferred customer parking designations, all those things. And they were pleased at that notion of trying to find a compromise and some ways to mitigate the angle parking issue.
And I
Thank
think
you.
to add to what Holly just said, that was one of the reasons in the commercial street lot, just one of the reasons that we went to 2 hours and 4 of the parking lots adjacent to the back of the buildings to try to give those buildings additional opportunity for parking for their businesses.
Yeah, I think that's a good move. I appreciate all that. But that's my comments. And
Well, I want to go back to your comment on the brick. I had some reservations also in the beginning. One of the things that we did to try to offset that was to increase the density of the material, the size of the block that's going to be used in the mainline traffic. Will there be increased maintenance? There absolutely will be. I mean, there's been several different things that's been brought before as far as maintenance requirements. I know Andy's worked with how are these going to be paid for the additional cost. We know there's going to be additional work when it comes to cleaning the permeable pavers. Now, we have not determined, will that be in-house? Will that be contract? It really will depend on each year. Where are we at in the current workload of the staff? But I'm hoping with the size increase, that will reduce maintenance.
okay, thank you.
I would add to that, you're going to be building this during a construction season that's normal. We were throwing together Canteen Alley at the last minute in the middle of December. I think that definitely had an impact on the functionality of the system. Also, it's going to be a lot less cutesy, maybe design. There's not going to have all those weird angles and stuff. You're not going to have those tiny little slivers of brick that just allow for more stuff to get inside there and clog it up. Overall, I think this is a much better design than we got the first time. And again, these are demonstration projects, and that's why we got $800,000 to do it. And we're possibly getting up to another $100,000 from other grant sources to do these green features. So Dubuque's done it for since 2007. They're going to have 280 porous asphalt, porous brick paver alleys by 2035. 280 blocks. And then they've got, 29 blocks up in Charles City, Iowa. And I think if Charles City, Iowa can figure it out, Ottumwa can figure it out.
One of the other features that we added, Skip, into the specifications because of those concerns along your lines was the compaction now has to be done in 8-inch lifts, and that's something where your on-site inspector needs to stand right there. I mean, you were in the construction business long enough to know that the tendency is to increase those. And then if your base settles, of course, the bricks are settling.
Thank you.
Okay. I remind the public this is a public hearing, and if there's anyone in the audience that wants to address this issue, now is the time to step to the mic. Okay, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, take a roll.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Resolution number 38, 2019, approving the plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the downtown streetscape project. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 38, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any final questions to Larry? Take the roll.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Fred and Brad.
Resolution number 28, 2019, fixing an amount for abating a nuisance against properties in the city of Ottumwa, Iowa for a total of $62,175.77. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 28, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendations presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kevin. You have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nuisances were abated in the city in this resolution. There are 4. When nuisances are abated by the city, the costs are billed to the property owners. When these costs remain unpaid, they're assessed to real estate taxes. Abatement costs in this resolution total $62,175.77. There are 3 demolitions and 1 nuisance on this resolution.
Any questions for Kevin? You'll have that in your packet. Okay. Take the roll.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Resolution number 32, 2019, approving bond disclosure policy. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 32, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation is presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bob, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Security Exchange Commission has created some new rules. So prior to bond sales after the 27th of February, the underwriter has to be assured in a more so than what we normally give them as far as disclosures and requirements than what they have had in the past. They're adding, currently there's 14 disclosure items and requirements. They're adding 2 more. One is the incurrence of a financial obligation of the obligated person, if material, or agreement to covenants, events of defaults, remedies, priority rights, other similar terms of a financial obligation of the obligated person, any of which may affect security holders, if material. And then number 16, a default, event of acceleration, termination event, modification of terms, or other similar events under the terms of a financial obligation of the obligated person, any of which reflect financial difficulties. So prior to this, these 2 items were not included in the disclosure requirements. And what they basically say is, if we now are going to be entering into some type of financial obligation, one of them would be the hotel. We have to put that in the disclosures if we're going to be issuing any additional debt of any type that we think. And to do so, that we have to disclose it within 10 days once the ink's dried on the agreement. So this puts more of a requirement on the finance department, so that once we know about these things, we have to then inform Spear Financial, who they go out and prepare our information and place it on EMMA, which is the electronic software or website where these disclosures are placed, so that an underwriter or somebody that's an investor can go on there, look up the city of Ottumwa, and look and see what's going on with that. So that now an underwriter, if we don't do this, so we're taking kind of a proactive stance with this, and we went ahead and disclosed some of these items in the official statement to give the underwriters more assurance that we are what we are. So, but this is something that's new, and they can't actually, an underwriter can't even bid on the bonds unless they have to document within themselves that they've checked our disclosures and they agree that they are, we are compliant with that. So,
Bob, I'm not trying to be cute here, but I think we use so many acronyms. EMMA is a girl's name, but it also stands for Electronic Municipal Market
Yes.
Access System, which is a web-based program anybody can look at.
Correct.
And I think, again, for general information, periodically, and the Spear financial people showed it to our staff some time ago, and it's very helpful, and we're in good shape. And I think that's a tribute to Bob and the staff. And I know Larry Spear pulled me aside at a meeting and said that our city was one of the better cities in terms of working with this system. So that's a compliment to you and Christy.
Thank you.
And
yeah, we do our best with that.
you do.
We
Good job.
make sure that that's why we get the audit done in time. We put a deadline on that. So all these things, so that we're in compliance, and we should receive our Moody's report, I believe, Wednesday.
Good.
So,
Are there any questions for Bob? Feel free to bring up anything. Okay. All right, then take the roll.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Thank you, Bob.
yes.
Resolution number 33, 2019, directing the advertisement for sale of 5.66 million general obligation bonds, Series 2019A, and approving electronic bidding procedures and official statement. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 33, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Holly. Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Your Honor. Once again, this is one of the steps. We're approving everything. We're going to go out for electronic bidding March 5th, and we'll sell the bonds then. This is $5,660,000. It's for everything but the urban renewal projects, and those will be 2019B because both of them, these are exempt from federal tax, while the 2019B ones are exempt from both federal and state tax. So that's why there's two distinct issues. The official statement was placed in your file. I apologize. I just got it printed out today. I was out of the office Friday when it was released. So anyway, there we are. And once this is done, then we're just waiting to hopefully get a low interest rates.
Yeah. Any questions for Bob? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Resolution number 34,
Thank you.
2019, directing the advertisement for sale of 1.88 million general obligation urban renewal bonds, Series 2019B, and approving electronic bidding procedures and official statement. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 34, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, these are the bonds that I mentioned earlier were the urban renewal bonds. So these two bonds, well, there's one bond, but they'll be covering two projects, the final phase for, of the beach and the airport runway project.
Any questions for Bob? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Good work.
Resolution number 35, 2019, approving the final plat of Odell's first subdivision to the city of Ottumwa, Wapello County, Iowa. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 35, 2019.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Holly. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Glenn Odell is submitting a final plat for the proposed Odell's first subdivision. Odell's first subdivision would take the current properties addressed at 739 South Webster and a property located directly west of 739 South Webster, 805 South Webster, and a lot directly south of 805 South Webster, and create two lots. This is a familial driven effort, and we had an approval of 8-0 from the Planning and Zoning Commission to transfer this to council for its approval, and that is the recommendation of staff.
Any questions for Kevin? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Resolution number 39, 2019, awarding the contract for the Water Pollution Control Facility Primary Clarifier Valve Replacement Project to Winger Contracting of Ottumwa, Iowa, in the amount of $87,078. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 39, 2019.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Larry.
Thank you, Mayor. This project consists of replacing drain valves on the primary clarifiers at the Water Pollution Control Facility. The valves were installed in 1971. They are buried approximately 18 feet deep in an 11-foot wide area between the primary tanks and the maintenance shop. They are below the foundation of both structures and are overlain by sidewalk, air supply line, 30-inch influent pipe, and scum pit drain lines. Those are mentioned just to kind of give you an idea. There's going to be some difficulties in shoring and completing this work. Bids were received and opened by the city of Ottumwa on February 13th, 2019 at 2 p.m. The low bidder is Winger Contracting of Ottumwa, Iowa, in the amount of $87,078. Plans were either sent or downloaded by Drish and WRH, which are two other firms that are typically in this type of line of work.
Any questions for Larry? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Are we to the point where we can, are there any individuals that want to talk to the council about anything of city business? Seeing none, we'll scratch that. Item K, council and mayor reports. I'd like to again compliment Councilman Matt Delby. Had a nice article in Cityscape magazine. And I think, again, anytime we can get publicity about our city out in a statewide publication, that's great. So thank you for doing that, Matt. Remind the city council that we will be having a site certification on March 5th at 2:30 in the afternoon. And I think Director Debbie Durham will be here to actually do the dedication and award this certificate. And with that, is there anything else from council? Any other issues, suggestions? Hearing none, I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
I have 6:30.
Never read it yet.